Hello everybody, and welcome back to Chapter Master. So it was requested of me to do a video on the controls, and it was also requested of me to do a video on exactly how I start up any Chapter Master game. So I'm going to combine them both. Alright, so let's begin. The system for controlling is entirely a click-based system, so click on a unit, click to deselect, etc, etc. So for, say you want to give this guy a flamer, you click there, then you click re-equip. So it's entirely menu and click-based system. So it's not too hard. There are a few little things to keep an eye out. So for example, that's a good way if you just want specific marines or specific idea. You know, you can click on and click off sort of thing. If you're doing just for a squad, then you know, if you click the colored bar on the side corresponding to that squad, boop, that will just select that entire squad, and then from there you're able to adjust them as is. But because of the click-based system, it is incredibly finicky. So for example, like there, I just clicked once and then it clicked the entire fucking company. So, see, it's very temperamental. It's kind of, you need to work it out the best you can sort of system. And as I said, sometimes you'll click and say you've just clicked this one guy, then you click all infantry. It will deselect the ones that you had selected earlier. So it's a very finicky sort of system, but it's not the worst in the world. Although it does frustrate me at times, I will be totally honest. We will get into spaceship combat when we get to it, because someone also asked how that works. So, moving away from the controls, we shall move to what I do when I first start out. So, when I first start out, I look at where the biggest threats are. So, for example, orcs are the biggest threat to me personally, then something like, say, Tau, and then Tyranids finally last. So, I look at the biggest concentration of orc worlds, and where they are currently located. So, for example, here, you've already got extreme orcs right there, so that's going to start generating orc fleets. So right here, in this sector, this clump is the biggest priority. However, you cannot ignore any orc world that might have potential greenskin activity for growth, so even though, for example here, it's only moderate and tiny, I would still like to send a company down there to deal with them myself. So, you isolate the threats and you figure out what your battle plan is from there. So, as I said, I've isolated. I'm going to split one company off to head south. The bulk of the chapter are going to head and deal with the orcs over here. Next thing I like to do is dish out my warriors appropriately. So, you usually start with, as I said, tech marines, apothecaries, sometimes masters of sanctity, etc, etc. And you want to dish them out to your company. So, I like to promote a few of them to the various companies. So first company, second company, I don't know, fourth company. But you must be careful, because when you promote someone like that, they will still stay on the same ship they are. So you need to manually unload and reload them to... Oh, it's his wind. Unload and reload them to ensure that they are on the correct ship. Right, so I usually like to dish out the apothecaries, you know, two. I like to have two per company. I'll usually sometimes transfer tech marines around to specific companies as well. Again, exactly the same thing. They need to be manually unloaded and reloaded to swap over ships to ensure everything's okay there as well. So, you know, here we go. See, I've got the two tech marines I promoted, the second, the apothecary I promoted, so everything seems to be going okay. Right, I must admit, this colour scheme's not bad. It's like Black Templars, except not... Yeah, it's pretty Black Templars-ish. Anyway, right, from there, I like to dish out my companies. Let's say I haven't actually adjusted anything in the chapter settings menu before the game started. So I like to manually go around and buy associated weapons. So I like to have at least one variant weapon per company, but sometimes two. So let's say 10 storm bolters, say 10 flamers. Melter guns are pretty expensive, but they're pretty decent as well, so 10 melter guns. I also like to dish out, you know, sniper rifles, las cannons, just whatever we have on hand. I'm always a huge proponent of chain axes, so I like buying them if I can as well. So basically I like to just dish out some of my companies with variant weapons just to keep things more fancy. Good idea to, you know, to have some bionics up your sleeve just in case you need them. Take a stock of what armor and equipment you have on hand. So for example, we don't have any spare suits of Terminator armor or anything like that. We've just basically got bog standard armor there on hand. Next thing I like to do, I'm not going to do it for everyone, but I will for the sake of time, but you know, I like to give someone a flame, you know, give someone in each company a melter gun, etc, etc. Then I like to go through and manually load the vehicles. So for battle barges, I like to take all the Land Raiders. There's sometimes not enough space to take every, you know, vehicle from every company, but at the minimum, I like taking the Predators, the Land Raiders, and the Decision Excellent. Oh, that's another glitch. That's a glitch where sometimes a company will appear on a escort when it's supposed to be on a strike cruiser. I like to manually buy a new strike cruiser or associate around the companies to avoid that. But I like to take all the Predators, all the Land Raiders, and I like to take a selection of Rhinos and Whirlwinds because they're actually a good kill screen. So I will, as I said, buy and re-equip all the companies with weapons, load up all of the vehicles, dish out all of the specialist ranks to the companies. Then I like to go into, depending on what playstyle I'm running, go into the chapter formation settings. I like to do that sort of thing, so I like to just adjust things around. So for attack, for example, I like to push the tanks back a bit, let the Rhinos and Land Raiders be a killing screen, so, you know, massive stuff like that. For raiding, usually perfectly fine, I don't bother changing it so much, you know. Again, for defense, you keep the Rhinos up front. So, I just like to do that, sort of keep things on board. With the Horus Heresy mod, it's not a thing, but in the regular version, you check what artifacts you have on hand, how many of them are demonic, what sort of, you know, is there anything you could trade, is there any you have on hand that you could use. Apothecarium, it's good an idea to, there you go, to try and get some additional gene seed just in case you need it, because you've got tithes you'll have to pay, as well as in case you run out of, you know, numbers on hand, so it's a good idea to keep that as well. Recruitment, again, it's good to just do whatever recruitment you can, prioritize what you want. So for example, I'm not a huge one for chaplains, but I am a bit of a stickler for apothecaries, so just changing things around like that. So yeah, there we go. Alright, now again with a click-based system, you can either do that to deselect everything and then manually click the ships you want, or if they're all selected, then you can just, you know, deselect the ones you don't want. So, for example, we are going to send 4th company, and what do we reckon? Yeah, 4th company south. So that will be his wind, and I like to send a couple of escorts as well. I actually usually take 2 ships, so we'll send the bulk of the chapter off that way to deal with those orcs, while the others will head south. Now, if you have only 1 ship, then what happens is you can't do bombardments. Your bombardments will be useless with only 1 strike cruiser, or even just a battle barge by itself. Your bombardments will be useless. So it's a good idea to ensure, if you're sending a lone company, that if you're playing a fleet-based system, that you have all of them on hand. Right, now, getting artifacts is always good. You just request audiences. Unless it's a Mechanicum or a Adeptus Sororitas world, they won't have any problem with you just taking the artifact. So there you go. Right, so we are going to go and deal with those orcs. So basically, again, just moving everything along. Click-based system. Now, that may sound harsh, but believe it or not, it's not actually... Oh, I selected one of the... Oh, I didn't mean to send that many Space Marines. Oh well, that's alright. I was going to say, heavy Tyranids, you never attack if they are above heavy. Sorry, my brain just had a brain fart there for a moment as I was trying to contemplate the meaning of my own existence in that moment. So, any Tyranid presence heavy or lower, 1 or 2 companies will be able to raid them to death. Do not attack, but raid them. Anything extreme, don't bother. You must bombard them, otherwise you will die. It's just how it goes. Oh. And, well, it would seem... Oh no, those orcs are still there. Right, so we are going to send these guys off to deal with those orcs, while these guys are going to go and deal with those orcs. Right. So again, as I said, the biggest priority is dealing with orcs, and then after that it's the Tau, and then the Tyranids come later. Now, other things worthy to consider is setting borders. I never used to believe in it myself, but after people kept nagging me to try it, and I actually discovered how powerful it is, then I have been fully convinced of the effectiveness of boarding. So I like to usually do 1 to 2 squads per company as boarders. You can re-equip them out to be a bit better, just so, you know, they have more of a chance of survival, so giving them heavy weapons and special weapons and stuff. And that does seem to have an impact from my tests. However, you don't need to go insane and make them bloody, you know, orc terminators and shit. I think I actually, when I did a test of this principle when I had... Well, I tried it like one, you know, I equipped all of the borders with Mark III plate one time, and it turned out to be not any less effective than just having them as is. So... that way. Now, fleet combat is where things get dicey. And personally, I would always avoid attacking enemy fleets unless they are small. So, for example, that size usually means it'll be like 1 battleship, a couple cruisers. Something like that will mean it's maybe 3 or 4 battleship and half a dozen cruisers. If it's bigger than that, so let's say, let's find an Imperial Navy fleet for comparison to Icon. So that would be a ginormous fleet with multiple, maybe 10 to 12 battleships, a dozen cruisers, and like 20 escorts. So you wouldn't really want to take on something like that. Even then, doing what I'm doing now, taking a fleet this size, is risky because the game can glitch, and sometimes it might look like it's a small fleet, like that tiny one down there or this size one here, and it will be 30 battleships, and it won't make any sense. Alright, so, fleet combat. It's a click and drag, and then click system. It's all right clicking. It's incredibly floaty and ineffective, and I don't really like it. Also, for some reason, if you press skip, double skip, then it becomes uncontrollably weird. I don't get it. Also, what I'm doing in terms of tactics is completely stupid, and don't do it. In fact, I'm actually an idiot for playing it like this. But basically, it's just a click system. So, select, click. Oh, that was really poor showing of fleet combat on my part. But, you know, you get the basic idea. Now, for extreme orc worlds, just bomb the shit out of them. Don't be... I know sometimes you want to be the lamenters and save everyone, but I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Just kill them. Cyclonic torpedo their asses to death. And go from there. Right. Again, raiding is definitely the more effective battlefield tactic, but sometimes launching an attack and you letting the armor rip shit up is also fun as well. So, where did that company go that I sent off? Where is that little company? Mutant Franconia? Franconia. FR. Telerax, need X-Dip ship. Oh, they're there. Okay. As I said, sometimes you need to actually go in the fleet menu to look for your fleet because they can become hidden in amongst the Imperial Navy or other vessels. So there you go. Now, we shall quickly maneuver around. I'll just attack one more Orc fleet to give you an example of what it means to accurately do fleet combat. And then I don't think there's too much else because, as I said, the main things I do at the start is prioritize the biggest threats, buy weapons and ammo, redistribute officers to wherever they're needed, re-equip companies with appropriate weapons, and then go from there. Right. So this is a more accurate sort of thing. So we're going to click drag the escorts and send them ahead. We're going to, for example, as you can see, some of our ships have wandered off alone. You want to try and curtail them. Otherwise, they will basically fly past and do attack runs, which can be good, but it also means that for a lot of the engagement, they're not going to be in the fight. Bugger off, little escort. Flee, little escort. You can see they're doing that turnaround there. So, yeah, basically it's just click to drag and then right click to where you want them to go. It's very finicky and not really ideal, but there you go. Now for heavy Orc worlds, you can raid them. I personally like to just bombard them to their moderate or less, but with say 400 or 500 Space Marines, you can easily just raid them to death and suffer minimal casualties. So yeah, I think that's basically everything. So just to recap, I personally hate people that recap their videos, but you know, just a quick power recap. So start off, look at the biggest threats, identify them, figure out how you're going to eliminate them. Redistribute officers, buy weapons and equipment, give them to said warriors, assign borders, and go. And as for the interface, everything is a left click based interface. It is not right click, it is left click based. So there. That is how I start a round of Chapter Master. So yeah. Cheerio lads. And I'll catch you again with the Lamenters next time.